Loss. Soul and karma. It is my intention to support you in progressing along your journeys as humans and as souls. At this time, you are experiencing so much intensification of all your emotional faculties in the form of deepening what you are feeling now, while feeling again many things from your past, both in this particular life and the other lives of your soul that are being lived along many points in the Earth timeline. You may not be consciously aware of this effect of stacking many of your most important life issues on top of each other, yet it is happening nonetheless. The major transition you are being faced with now is the evolution of your consciousness, and part of this process is for you to come into more awareness of yourselves as multidimensional beings. I will speak here about many forms of loss that you have experienced and are now challenged to deal with, process, release, and heal. First, however, I will explain how this journey of your soul works. This perspective is necessary in order that you come out of your historical relationship with loss and your ideas of why you lose what is important to you. I wish to share with you how your soul understands its journey and how your numerous lives on Earth along the timeline fit with that journey. When you use the word soul, you certainly have an idea of what that means. You are able to conceive of this and talk about it with each other. Some of your ideas have been shaped by the religions in which you were raised and that you have been practicing for perhaps thousands of years. The perspective I wish to share with you today may not fit with all that you have learned. I invite you to take in what I am telling you and see if it feels true to you. But I invite you to hear all I have to say and not attempt to combine it with what you have learned so far about the soul and what you think about it. I ask this so that you can take in the entire picture that I will paint for you without getting sidetracked from trying to make it fit with what you have heard in the past. When I speak about soul, I'm talking about the portion of divinity that you are. Each of you and each living being is a portion of the divine. You have also called the divine God and goddess, and it has been referred to as source, the creator energy, and other names including all that is, which is what I will use primarily here when speaking of your divinity. All that is has a need to know itself, to understand itself. While it was undifferentiated, one mass of all consciousness in existence, it had nothing to reflect it to itself. The decision was made to split itself off into many, many pieces, so that the pieces could encounter one another. It was clear that in this way, all that is could know itself. The number of pieces that have been portioned off is great, and all that is foresaw that it would take many, many various and perhaps all possible interactions of the pieces of it with each other in order to truly know itself. As you live out your lives on Earth, along many points of the Earth timeline, all that is learning about itself. It is, or you are, learning by interacting with each other in all the possible ways that you can. There are infinite possibilities of choice and expression available to you as pieces of all that is, and the variety of lives that you are living on Earth as various sorts of beings, and the free will that you have as you explore what it is to live the lives on Earth in bodies like the bodies available for living lives on Earth. All of this variety will, in time, cover all the possibilities available to you. You are all learning about how to live here and in the process, all that is learns what it has set out to learn. All manner of behaviors and choices exists for beings on earth. Each and every one of them supports the mission of all that is to learn about itself in its fullness. So, all discrete beings that you see and encounter in your lives are in fact one being split off into pieces that are all learning. As each piece incorporates its learning lessons, as each seeks to understand why it has chosen as it has and why it behaves as it does, in this way all that is learns perfectly what it seeks to learn. Soul, then, is a portion of all that is on a journey to add to its learning. As a human living on earth, you are more or less unaware of soul. You are aware of your loves, fears, challenges, passions, relationships, accomplishments, failures, and other things. But you are not, by default, aware of soul. Many of you are aware that there is more than your loves and fears and the rest, and this is why you have formulated your wide variety of religions. They are an attempt to connect you directly to the thing that you are not, by default, aware of, but sense must be there. Soul is real, and all humans at root desire to connect with theirs. It is possible to do so, and many do this, yet you are at a time in your collective evolution that the need to connect directly with soul is escalating. You are watching your world change in fundamental ways, and know with certainty that it will never change back to how it was. If you are listening to and reading channelings such as these, you may have developed a vocabulary about the changes that are taking place, and perhaps you feel more secure in these changes than those who do not yet have a vocabulary. Whatever speed at which people gain such vocabulary and an accompanying understanding is perfect for their soul's journey. Many of you are seeking a way to connect with soul directly in conscious ways. I applaud you for your tenacity and choice to have faith that all of this that you cannot see or prove is indeed real, and that all you have sensed and envisioned about yourself is real. My aim is to support you in this stage of your evolution by offering you perspective on what has confused you in your many lives on earth. Once you understand what has happened and why it has happened, and why you as soul or divinity have created all that you have experienced, you will be able to begin inhabiting your true nature as incredibly powerful divine beings. That is the next stage in your evolution. Yet you must, in order to reach that stage, change your mind about why you have experienced your history. This phrase, incredibly powerful divine beings, or the idea, is perhaps not foreign to you. Yet I assure you that you will be amazed when you understand the depth to which your power exists and the reach you have so far used it in order to create the circumstances of all your lives on earth. One of my main messages to you is to teach you in what ways you have created all your lives and all of the experiences and dynamics that you have lived through. You have lived through millennia of being told and believing that you are not powerful. You have observed what has happened within and around you, much of it painful, and some of it destructive, and interpreted this to mean that you are not strong. You have been, for as long as there have been humans, and even before that in your lives as animals on earth, predating the existence of human animals, experiencing everything through the lens of duality. Looking at things this way, you have come to see yourselves and your world in confused ways that do not reflect the nature of your creative power. In duality, when someone has power, someone else does not. When someone gains status, someone else must lose it. And you have assigned meaning to all these things when they happen, and you now carry confusions in your energy fields, shared among your soul's many lives, that reinforce the confused beliefs that you are carrying about how things work in your planet. Each piece of information I offer you is meant to shed light on how things really work on your planet, in your dimension. This sense of powerlessness has been important to the evolution of you as individual portions of divinity and you as a collective, the divine learning about itself in all manner of ways through living numerous lives on earth. As you have believed that you are not powerful except under certain social conditions and according to certain social and material definitions, I and other beings like me are attempting to teach you in what ways you are actually extremely powerful beings and have been all along. If you take nothing else from what I am offering you here, spend time sitting with the notion that you are the creator of each and everything that has ever happened to you. Observe how that feels to you. Part of you wants to react strongly and with anger and to correct me, insisting that you did not and would not create such pain for yourself to experience. It is not to your minds acceptable that someone would tell you that you would do that. You believe that you want to be happy and free of pain. Certainly it is true that parts of you do desire this, yet behind all of the parts of you is soul, the portion of divinity that you are. The divine part of you understands the point of the pain and suffering you have created, and in fact has learned much about its particular mission as a portion of the divine through experiencing that pain and suffering over the course of many lives. Now you are invited to evolve your level of consciousness to be broader than your mind is in the habit of allowing. Part of your process at this point in time is to open to experiencing all that you are, allowing all parts of you to speak and be heard. It is time to do this so that all of the parts of you that are imprinted with this past wounding can be processed and brought to be assets for you, not knots in your energy field that distract you and withhold their knowledge and skills that actually serve to complete you. Your fears about recreating the painful and disempowering scenarios that lead to the information of each knot in the first place are what perpetuate the knots and repeatedly bring such painful and disempowering scenarios to you again and again. The journey of your soul, then, is to incarnate in many lives at different points along the Earth timeline, in order that it and each other portion of all that is can, through experiences with each other, know themselves. This will ultimately allow all that is in its entirety to know itself, the sole purpose of what is known as the manifestation experiment, and what I refer to often as the divine plan. Meaning, how feelings about a situation get lodged in your system as a knot has to do with the meaning that you attach to your experience. If you feel pain about a scenario and accept it as a reality that is a part of life and nothing more, then it does not have to become a knot. You, however, attach meaning in abundance to why you experience pain when you do, and as a consequence, many of you are carrying knots in your energy fields. These knots prevent you from knowing yourself deeply and fully as the powerful divine creative beings that you are, because they leave you feeling powerless. To support you in changing this situation is why I offer these teachings. When a painful scenario unfolds in your life and you decide that it means something, whether about you, another person, or the world, or life in general, or even God or the universe, you create a knot. These knots, when carried in your energetic fields and experienced in multiple lives, are what are known as karma. And I want you to understand what karma is and how you can change it. The meaning you attach to why you have experienced a painful situation is a belief. Carrying a belief about why you have experienced something guarantees that you will draw to you situations that repeat the original scenario in some form. Changing karma, therefore, is as simple as changing your beliefs about why things happen to you now and why they have in the past happened to you. The karma that matters in your context here today is related to very painful scenarios. But all of your beliefs about why things happen the way that they do can be changed. This is an example of the deep power that you carry as divine beings. You, at all times, create your reality, and if you find that it is not working, you have the option of changing just how you are creating it. This is done by changing your mind about why things have happened to you in the past. You really are amazing beings, and I am excited for you to learn for yourselves all the ways in which this is true. Your conceptions of karma on earth have been misunderstood in the main. This is because of your conception of soul combined with the teachings from religious sources about life, death, justice, God, and why things happen the way they do. You are quick to judge yourselves for having been bad or made mistakes or having been created imperfect, so you cannot hope to avoid failing. And so some very valuable teachings on soul and karma have been mutated and mangled in the collective consciousness as a result. Many of you are inclined to see karma as equivalent to justice, so that if something good happens to you, it is a reward for having been just, while if something bad happens to you, it is a punishment for having been unjust. This thinking is faulty. There is no force in the universe judging you except you, and this can only happen if you have accepted the faulty and manipulative teaching that there is something in you that is worth punishing. You are God. There is no external force sitting in judgment of you. Over the history of humanity, as I have said, you have come to believe that you are powerless. You have been tricked into seeing others as powerful, and that there is always someone more powerful than you. You have been taught, and you have taken into your energy fields as beliefs that there is something somehow wrong with you. It is time that you come to see with clarity how this manipulation has served to keep you feeling powerless, so that you and your creative power can be harnessed in the creation of fear and thereby controlled. In the rest of this session, I will be revealing to you how it is that you have created all that you have experienced, and it may be difficult for you in many ways. Understand that what I am asking you to do is to open to a perspective that seeks to empower you to be yourselves, to learn to come to inhabit your true natures at long last, and notice that just about everything else you have been taught over the millennia has sought to leave you feeling in some way less than or deserving of not very much love unless you jump through a bunch of hoops in order to prove that you are worthy. Most of what you have learned about soul, karma, life, death, and love is absurd, and it is my intention to shed light on why you have chosen to believe these teachings and how it is that you can shift yourselves out of this history of manipulation and step into inhabiting your true natures as divine beings, as all that is. So, it is true that this soul journey involves karma, but karma is not something that happens to you. Karma is the sum of energies you hold as beliefs that travels with you in all of your lives, that is shared in common in all of your soul's many lives lived on earth. By carrying the beliefs, karma is then what is created by you in the world around you, because what you are holding inside cannot help but to be manifest in the world around you. This is a testament to your divine creative power. When you can understand this truth, that your experience on earth is determined by the beliefs as energy that you are carrying within your energy field, and therefore psyche, you will be able to free yourself from unnecessary suffering and step more directly and more consciously into your power. There is nothing that you have to do to manifest your power. You are already doing it. But for what doesn't work in your life, for what brings you pain time and time again and over many, many lives, it is time that you understand that you have been exercising your divine power all along and that you have created every single thing that you have ever experienced. I invite you to open to this view of karma. It will reveal to you how you can change your life and commence with creating for yourself what it is that you want to experience while you are incarnated. I am here to teach you this because it is in support of the divine plan that you all come to know yourselves as portions of all that is. We are now ready to begin speaking about loss. I will explore a number of different experiences of loss in family and other relationships that impact you extremely deeply. Each of these kinds of loss carry the sort of emotional charge and imprinting of pain that will carry through many of your soul's lives, and each is, emotionally speaking, a foundational and a formative experience. In other words, each of these experiences of loss will continue or repeat in many lives until you learn the value in that sort of loss, and until you can experience all the feelings and then learn not to attach meaning to them about you, the world, Goddess, the universe, and so on. What is it that happens when you lose someone? Someone who has been there is now no longer with you. You become close to people and you share your journeys with them, and when they are no longer with you, and they are no longer sharing your journey with you, this can be extremely difficult for you. Let us begin exploring loss, with me sharing with you how I see the attachments that you form with people. Whatever the type of relationship you share energy with that person, you invest in that other person some of your energy. This is not as unhealthy as you might at first imagine. And there is nothing wrong with it, as long as you learn to take it back again once the duration that you share your journeys together has come to an end. Many of you have been exposed to the idea of codependency, and you are clear that it is not a healthy way to have relationships. But this is different. This energy sharing is a way of aligning yourselves together. It serves to help each person tune his or her consciousness to that of the other, with the result that your different perspectives affect each other. This enriches your journey as a soul, having a human experience by being exposed to how another person of the divine is learning about itself along its unique journey. The primary ways that you learn about yourselves as portions of the divine is to align and ally with other portions of the divine, sharing notes and experiencing events and emotions together. There has to be some sort of energetic alignment between two beings. In other words, for much of your learning as humans to take place. This is not the same as having feelings for another person. This is about when there is a connection that is mutually nurtured and fed, when two of you recognize that there is a purpose for your relationship, and you agree to join together in some way in order to achieve some end, even if that end is simply being together. When discussing families, this happens behind the scenes, so to speak, and when the child is born, there is a place with connections to other family members and tact upon the arrival of the child. In friendships and other love relationships, including romantic and sexual relationships, the agreement happens outside the two particular human lives and is triggered sometime after birth. When you are close to another person, this sharing of energies ties your journeys together temporarily. Where there are soul contracts between two portions of divinity, each offers to support the other in its learning about how to live human lives. They are each by definition infinite and without limit because of the nature of the limitless love shared between all portions of divinity. Yet as you live your human lives along the timeline that defines the earth dimension, each relationship with another person is necessarily time-limited or temporary. There are some portions of divinity with whom you share such an affinity that you crave to find each other again. You have known each other in many lives and have in many ways participated in each other's learning journeys, and you feel more connected to those portions than to other portions. These are the major teachers for you along your soul's journey, but it is important to savor their presence when they are with you, and then learn to let them go, because I guarantee they have other contracts to fulfill, and they will move on eventually. Remember that, while the love between souls or portions of divinity is infinite, as you live lives as humans, tied to your perception of time, and while in a physical body defined by its experience of time, the human manifestation of this divine love is always temporary. From the soul's perspective, there is great joy that results from you having these contracts arranged amongst you. It is always to be celebrated that you are loving each other in such ways. From the human perspective, because of your perceptions of time and your perception that you are separate from all that is, which is to say each other, you sometimes want to cling to another with whom you have such a contract. At times, parts of you will forget that each soul has its own journey to travel, and that each has many, many soul contracts to fulfill, and in many different ways. As parts of you forget this, you begin to perceive that the reason this person is in your life is so that you are benefited. Being in your bodies in that way and being tied to time, it is very easy to perceive that others are in your life to serve some purpose in your life. When they are ready to leave, there are parts of you that are not ready to let them go. Some of you accept stoically the facts of the situation, while some of you writhe in agony at the change in relationship dynamics. What has happened is that a person came into your life when you needed a certain kind and a level of instruction related to your journey as a soul having a human experience, and then, whether relatively soon after or years after, that person left. It is that simple. what has happened? Someone arrived, and then that someone left. As you have joined energies with that person in some way, and I am not speaking strictly about the energies that are joined through sexually intimate relationships, you are entangled with each other. This occurs between friends and also among members of families. As I said earlier, in order to learn from each other, you share energies with those with whom you are closest in your life. The entanglement of two souls' energies affects you in deep ways. It only becomes an issue when you lose touch with your portion of the energy, when you fail to remember what belongs to you and just exactly who you are. As I said, it is natural to share energies with another person whose soul has a contract with your soul. When it is time for someone to leave, if you have lost sight of who you are in terms of that relationship, part of you will perceive that separation as tantamount to death, and of course, you do not want to die. These particular parts of you want to do anything but die. But what has happened is that you have forgotten who you are. That is all. You will not die. Such a separation of two loving souls cannot kill you unless you have decided that you would rather die than be apart, which can happen because of the intense creative power that you carry as divine beings. When it is time for you to separate from one with whom you have this deep sort of soul connection, this karmic contract to support each other along your journeys, you can perceive that something terrible is happening. You can feel that you lose some part of yourself, and that this is the feeling of death. What is actually dying is your perception that you need the other person in order to survive in some way. When this happens, something very important has been forgotten. That the relationship existed at all as a reflection of a deep love between souls. This is to be celebrated, and yet it is very easy for you to become consumed by the feelings of loss and death when someone you have energetically and emotionally joined with has moved on. For the part of you that perceives that the end of the relationship is about this, you are challenged to enlarge its perspective. Always come back to the fact that such deeply impactful relationships are the result and reflection of deep love. Choose to remember the truth that all human relationships are temporary. There is an idea floating around the human collective awareness that there is a person out there for you. I have explored this in detail elsewhere. Footnote. See Approaching Love. End of footnote. But I will tell you again here that there is not one person out there for you. This idea is tied to the phrase soulmate, and yet it is widely misunderstood on Earth at present. Each of you has many what I call karma mates, people with whose souls you have contracts such as the sort described above. When it is time during one of your human lives for this being to impact you and teach you something important about yourself, the being appears and has an impact and an effect. When that learning is done, that being goes away in one way or another, by one set of reasons and circumstances or another. It is that simple. When you need a teacher, a being that has signed on to teach you appears, and when you have learned what you have asked that being to teach you, that being moves on. There are times when these teachings are complete and a being simply takes on a new role in your life. The relationship transforms itself. But the focus here in this teaching is on when you experience loss. And so that is where I will continue to focus. The contracts that your soul has with other souls are fulfilled in many different ways, and the relationships that are formed for this purpose can be of a very brief duration or a long duration. The level of your attachment deepens over time that you spend together, and so loss is often felt in response to relationships that have lasted many years. Yet the valuable teachings you share with people unfold within brief relationships as well. I invite you to adapt your view of what is happening when you experience this sort of loss, to take shape around the truths I have outlined above about the nature of soul contracts and karmic teachers, and the nature of how those contracts and agreements are expressed through the lens of the time-space dimension in which you live. Enlarging your view on these topics to include these truths will reveal to you in what ways that for as long as you have been conscious over your many human lives lived along the Earth timeline, your consciousness has been operating on a very limited level. This has been necessary because it has been necessary that you view others as coming into your life and then leaving for unknown reasons, or at least reasons that you cannot fully explain, and therefore cannot fully grieve. It has been important for you that there have been relationships that you have not understood fully the purpose of their existence, and therefore the purpose of their end. This has been important because of the nature of your learning as the divine how to have human lives, how to be souls embodied and incarnated, so that you can learn about the kinds of attachments humans can share with each other. It has been important because you have needed to learn in what ways forgetting all the details and truths related to the divine plan can serve the journey of divinity, experiencing the forgetting of its own true nature. Yet now you are ready to learn this, or more accurately, remember it. Many of you have glimpsed these truths, whether singly or many of them, and whether you are the only one you know glimpsing them, or if you have others with whom you can share your insights. You have begun to remember more about your true nature as divine beings, and you are beginning to remember the truths I have come through today to offer you, so that you might return to state of being aligned more closely with your true nature as divinity than at any other time in your history of living human lives on Earth. Take one particular relationship from your past that has been very important to you as an example, one that ended and through which you experienced a deep sense of loss at and after its end. Work with these truths and seek to understand why this contract is in place. Look at what you learned from this person's involvement in your life and choose to be grateful to that person for that teaching. Look at what he or she showed you about yourself and understand that that person arrived in your life when you needed to experience the part of you that he or she brought out. Choose to see that of many contracts you have with many people, this particular person arrived at just the right time, whether this was in response to a conscious invitation on your part to learn something about life or yourself, or whether it was the result of the ripening of a contract between your souls of which you had no conscious awareness. Thank this person for showing you yourself, and accept the truth that the relationship had to end in order that each of you could move on to fulfill other contracts each of you have with other souls. Choose to see that there is a perfection of the timing of the entrance of this person into your life, while there is also a perfection of the timing of that person's exit from your life. Choose to see the end of that relationship not only as something painful that happened to you, but as a necessary part of your soul's growth that involved pain for parts of you that were not ready to let go of the person, relationship, and the identity that you had developed surrounding the relationship, which is to say what that person showed you about yourself. Often you speak of this in terms of what the other person brings out in you. Identity. I would like now to explore the identities that you develop around the presence and effect on you of other people in your life. What is really going on is that these people are reflecting to you certain parts of you that you have not been sure how to bring out and express. All that you are with others is who you yourself are, yet for reasons having to do with karma and the choices that you make as beings perceiving themselves as separate from all that is, you have perceived certain parts of you unacceptable, inaccessible, and inappropriate for you to express. There are also other parts of you that you simply have not seen much of, or clearly, or have not had opportunity to express freely on your own. You will also, at points in your soul's many lives, bring out certain parts of yourselves, but will find, in at least some circumstances, that, for one reason or another, it feels a bad idea to do so. You might have experiences bringing out a part of you in certain lives, for example, in which you have chosen to be born into a family system in which it is not acceptable to behave in certain ways or for certain motivations. You might also have brought part of you out in a life that seems to have gotten you into trouble, or that brought you deep pain. There are many reasons you, in your various lives, as humans, have shelved or put away certain parts of you. These karma mates, with whom you have your most intense and deep relationships, function as teachers to inspire you to reclaim parts of yourself. Whatever it is that you feel you are when you are with such people is exactly who you really are. Yet you might want to, and you often do, make those other people responsible for that part of you. In other words, you may feel that you finally get to be whole because of this other person, and that those other people are responsible for bringing these parts of you out from their dark corners, cold attics, or lonely basements where they have been hiding. The contract you have with such a person helping you see yourself is about precisely that. It is time for you to understand the real function and purpose of your relationships, and to release others from the responsibility for you to express your wholeness. You can do this now, and you can do it so that it has a retroactive effect. This means that as you thank the people in your life now who are showing you to yourself, and then you choose to release them of the responsibility of continuing to do so, you commit to owning your own self-expression, your creative power as a divine being. Once you do this, you can go back through your relationship history and memories you have from previous relationships that have ended or transformed into new kinds of relationships other than their original forms, and thank those people for what they have shown you about you. By committing to being whole and taking on the responsibility of being all the parts of yourself that you have learned about from interacting with other people as karma mates, the soul teachers, you can choose to release all others from your past from being beholden to you, to continue to bring you out to yourself. They have instigated your growth and your deepening and increasing self-awareness, and they have thereby served you in wonderful ways as very important teachers. Now it is time to let each and every one of them go energetically and emotionally, so that they and you can each go on your own next engagements as karma mates for a wide variety of people in diverse circumstances. For each person you do not release, you maintain an energetic and emotional connection that is based in a fear of loneliness and lack. Parts of you are unsure that you really are all the things that you experienced yourself to be in the presence of those other people, yet you are. I guarantee that you are. You could never be, in actuality, more whole than you are now, which is to say that you could never be more divine. It simply remains for you to choose to own all parts of you and to express them, to commit to being them and bringing them out. Take a moment and consider the fears and the sense of loss you had at the end of a particularly intense and deep relationship with another person. It could be one of numerous different kinds of relationships. When it was time for that person or you to move on, what did you feel? What did you feel it meant about you that this relationship was ending? What did you fear would happen to you? This would come to your mind in the knowing of the worst thing that is going to happen, yet you were projecting this fear. It did not come true, unless you, as the divine creative power being that you are, decided that was your only choice. It is more likely that this fear belongs to a part of you that made a lot of noise at that time, and then once the dust settled in your emotional and energetic reality after the relationship ended, this fear of the worst did not come true. And so when it comes to facing the loss of a relationship, you are, in truth, facing the loss of an identity. You are faced with an apparent reality that you can no longer be this version of you that is more whole, very loving, open-minded, funny or charming, sensual and sexy. That is any other positive attribute that you enjoy feeling is who you really are. Part of you is unsure that these things are really true about you. The struggle with the feeling of death surrounding the end of important relationships in your life is based in the fear that these parts of you were only real because of the other person, and that now that the relationship is over, you must go back to a previous state of being fractured and incomplete. You fear that you will lose the parts of yourself that were most evidently and wonderfully present because of the energetic and emotional dynamic you shared with the other person. Yet this fear is based in an assumption that has been shaped by your eons living in cultures and societies that have not taught you about your true nature. They had no idea because you have all but forgotten who you really are. You are ready to leave this assumption behind and see all of these people in your life as your teachers, as influences who come and who go when the times are right for each of you. How can you shift your experience of the end of relationships of various kinds? Observe the identity that you have generated in response to the energetic and emotional dynamic that you have or had with that person in question. Recognize that the function of that relationship, as with any and all relationships in your life, is to show you to yourself, to reveal you in more of your fullness than you can remember or experience alone. Thank the person for showing you to yourself. Release the other person from any and all obligation to continue to do anything for you, to continue to show you to yourself and to be present in your life and available to you in order to do this. When you think of the person later, after the relationship has ended. Remember that there has been the fulfillment of a soul-level contract between the two of you, two portions of the divine who have met while living human lives in order to show each other to each other in ways that each cannot do for the self. Taking back and giving back energy. When relationships end and you are clear it is time to move on, there is the matter of the energetic and emotional sharing that you have experienced together needing to come to an end. In practical terms, of course, it does end. But the energetic and emotional connection can persist and feel intact until each person has taken back energy given to the other one in the spirit of love and fulfilling the soul-level contract you have together as karma mates. You may be aware of a form of this known as cutting cords, yet I wish that in your mind, when you think of it as taking back energy and giving back energy. Centering this process around the concept of cutting can lead you to forget that the need to end the connection between you and the other person is not a negative thing. There is nothing wrong with the relationship as you experienced it, because it served the purpose you co-created it to serve. And cutting implies an energetic violence that need not be brought into the situation. I wish to put your attention on the energy of the language you use when you speak about such things, recognizing that your creative power is expressed through your conceptions and verbalizations. Conceiving and verbalizing, taking back and giving back energy as cutting cords supports the creation of the relationship in your mind, a construct that leads to thinking of the other person as someone from whom you should or need to be severed. This is never true, and I therefore invite you to use the phrasing for this process that I'm offering you. Giving energy back and taking it back creates a construct that reveals the fact of the choice that you and the other person have exercised in relating together for a time in order to show the other to each other. And it is a wonderful thing to experience such a contract and have that support from another divine being. Shift your focus to the fact of this choosing and choose to leave violence in all its forms out of the process. There is a basic format for taking and giving back, and it is a very simple one. Each person needs to, from a heartfelt and clear emotional state, take back all energy that he or she might have given to the other person in this or in other lives in order that the soul contract be fulfilled. And also, he or she needs to give back all energy that he or she might have taken on from the other person in order that the soul contract be fulfilled. That this be done by each party is important. But if you do this and your karma mate does not do this, it does not mean that what you have given back and taken back has not worked. It simply means that there is more learning waiting for the person who at that time was not able to or chose not to give and take all his or her energy back. As a collective, you have not yet gained awareness of what it means that you are energetic beings. It is not yet part of your collective mythology, stories you tell about yourselves, that you are energetic beings having physical experiences. You have long been attempting to answer questions about what soul is and does, and what happens before you were born and what happens after you die. When it comes to relationships, however, you do recognize the intense emotional connections that you develop with each other through various sorts of relationships, and this is, in fact, a way of talking about energy and the fact that you are energetic beings. When a relationship is over and you feel a longing to connect with that person again in the same way that you previously connected, whether the person has moved on in life or has passed out of life and into his or her soul's next stage of being, when you feel an emotional longing for that person, you are actually feeling an energetic longing for that person or the connection you had with that person. Emotion is energy. You are reaching out as an energetic being to try to reconnect with that person. Therefore, it is imperative for the healthy evolution of all that you learn that longing emotionally equates to reaching out energetically, and that in the spirit of releasing other people to other soul contracts and experiences with their other karma mates, it is important for you to release any and all expectation that they be with or doing something for you. When you reach out in longing in this way, it is in fact an expression of your creative power. And when it is time for the relationship to dissolve, or it has dissolved already, this way of using your creative power does not and cannot serve you or the other person. I encourage you to release all others from the responsibility and obligation of being with you, and that you release yourself from the responsibility and obligation of being with others in order that you show each other to each other. Thus far, I have spoken about what happens when you feel you cannot release the other person from your energetic and emotional connectivity. When you are able to release another, but that person is unable to release you, you can still feel a pull toward and connection with that other person. When this is the case for you, you need to go through the process of releasing yourself and the other person from any obligation to each other, and you need to take back and give back energy. And then when you sense the other person is reaching out for you, and some of you are sensitive enough to energy and the particular dynamic through which you have been connected to others, state the boundary that you have made, namely that you have moved on. Understand that if you are clear about your boundary and that your involvement with that other person is for you complete, then it is complete. After a time of you either getting clear that you have the right to be finished with that other person because you have decided to move on, or restating it, the other person will not be able to, so to speak, find your vibration. If you truly move on energetically and emotionally, then any reaching out that that person does to attempt to connect with you will not work. You will not be available. Always do all of this with love for yourself and for the other person, so that each of you is empowered to move on along the path and seek out the others with whom you have soul contracts to fulfill in this life. At some times in this process, you will find parts of you doubting that you should in fact have such a clear boundary and intention that this other person whom you have loved is not to be in your energetic field. I encourage you to work with these parts of you who are at these times fearing loss and a life of being alone and one without love, to help them heal enough that their perspective on what is happening can shift and they can get on board with what is now best for your being as a whole. Why you fear loss. Part of the process so far in coming to live earthbound lives has involved forgetting temporarily that you are a part of all that is. This has been necessary so that you can be guaranteed to learn about life through human eyes. You fear loss because you have not yet fully remembered that you are connected to each other, and that together you and all other living beings make up all that is. You are the creator, the divine, and the source of all consciousness and being. You are now, as a collective, ready to begin remembering who you really are, and in fact, you are not just ready, you can no longer avoid remembering your nature as a divine creator. As I say, that you have forgotten this truth is part of the learning that you have undergone. You have sought to answer the questions, what would it be like if I'm all alone? What would a life be like if I do not remember my true nature and that of all other living beings? What would it be like to forget who I really am? In living lives that seek answers to these questions, you have encountered all manner of instances in life that have been deeply painful because you have felt cut off from the divine and from your divine nature, your divine heritage. Forgetting yourselves has been necessary, yet it has led to a great deal of pain. When humans become conditioned to feel separate from each other and continually not remember that they are together all that is, you can interpret what you see in the world around you as confirmation of these beliefs. You can come to see the pain you experience as proof that there is no loving divine source and no God that loves you. You can believe that you are separate, and you then live through this appearance of separateness. It is useful to think of this as the myth of separateness, because it is not true. It is a story that you tell yourselves and each other because you believe it to be true. It seems as though a good explanation for what you are experiencing and feeling. You are now ready to stop believing in this myth, and this is a major point of my teachings for you today. Given this feeling of separation from your true natures as divine beings, and that you have forgotten that you and all others together are all that is, the end of important relationships of various kinds in your life can seem to portend the coming true that you are all alone and that you are on your own. Such experiences with specific humans can echo the deep fear that you have been abandoned, and this pain is very deep pain indeed. This echo and belief might not be consciously in your mind, but it is one source of the fear that people feel when a relationship of one kind or another ends. It has seemed that this other person has completed you. He or she has, just by being and being with you, provided a safe space in which you are finally safe to be yourself, or perhaps feel secure enough to open to another person. Because you have forgotten that you are together all that is, you have been exploring, trying to figure out whom is safe to trust. As you remember that you are all together all that is, this situation in your life will shift drastically. This issue of trust is to what much of your pain surrounding the end of relationships can boil down to. This other person has inspired you to trust, and this is very important to you. Feeling connected in very deep ways with others requires that you open up, and this requires in turn that you feel that you can trust them. I would like for you to learn more about trust, but centered on the perspective that if you wait for another to come along who is suitable for you to open yourself up to, you will live a life of waiting. Your capacity to trust is entirely based on your willingness to show yourself, not the trustworthiness of another person. When you deem another worthy of your trust, you are reading in that person a reflection of something about you that you trust. And it is true that just because you feel the other is trustworthy does not mean that the other person will honor that you trust him or her. Much pain in your relationships over many lives has been rooted in this truth. Yet when you approach the issue of trusting as in fact about you and not about another person's qualifications or motivations, you can shift your experience of relationship and have marvelous experiences exploring new dynamics with many different sorts of people, all without the drama, betrayal, and perceptions of abandonment that have followed many of you around for many lifetimes on Earth. A great deal of your human learning through your various lives, regardless of the specific karmic imprinting you experience along your unique journey, has to do with forgetting that you are altogether all that is, and then ultimately remembering. You have been for so very long experiencing circumstances and dynamics that seem to support your forgetting, that you are in desperate need of proving yourselves wrong of the idea that you are all alone. This is a reason that I and other beings choose to come through and offer you our perspective of what is happening with you on your planet in your process of learning. We wish to remind you of the truth that you are not alone, and we come through often when you most need a reminder of who you really are and what is really going on for you in the Earth timeline and time-space dimension. I am coming through this channel as much as I am now because you truly and deeply need nudging in the direction of treating yourselves and each other with more love. You also very much need support in remembering your true nature as divine beings that happen to be having a human experience, and that these experiences are temporary. You are always all that is. You could never be anything else. You are never alone. You have never been alone. The feeling of separateness is due to a myth, a story, that you have believed. It is time for you to remember who you are, and it is my aim to provide this and other material so that you might ground yourself and your awareness in my vibration, so that you can come to remember on your own who you are and why you have come to live lives on Earth. In the end, it is up to you to decide that you are not alone in the universe. Neither I nor anyone else can make this decision for you. Your fundamental orientation to what the end of a relationship means for you has been informed by your particular set of karmic experiences and the beliefs you carry that have been shaped as a result of having had those experiences. Your entire worldview and conception of self has been shaped over many lifetimes in the direction of interpreting your life experiences as confirmation that you are all alone and that you are a solitary being here to experience life in one way or another, and often with others, but who in the end is alone. The unprecedented opportunities you are now experiencing as a living being on Earth with regard to the acceleration of the evolution of consciousness include being able to go through your history of relationship losses of various kinds and change the meaning that you have attached to them. Is it true that you have been left alone? Is it true that if your relationships with your most dear and cherished karma mates were to end, that you would be alone? Would you take the ends of these relationships to be support for the belief or conviction that you are all alone in this life? Or will you take them as the completion of karmic contracts, the timing of which is always perfect, and be grateful for the opportunities to know yourself more fully and more aligned with your true nature as a divine being? Will you choose to have faith in yourself as a powerful creator who has generated and managed all of your life experiences in order to teach you, as all that is, what you came here to learn, which is about how to be and live here? This is true for loss, that it is related to death, and loss that is due to a reason other than death. If someone has left your life and it has not been through a death, it can in some ways be more difficult than if the person had died. I mean to say that death offers a definitive finality that you accept cannot be reversed. If someone and you split up because of a series of arguments, fights, and/or disagreements, there might be a part of you that retains the hope that you might be able to fix things with that person and come together again. Death obviously cuts that possibility off very clearly in your mind. As you begin to choose to see your relationships for what they are, when it is time for them to end, you will be able to live through those times in a conscious way that keeps you connected to yourself as the divine, not as a being feeling the worst has come true. You will be able to see how you created those experiences, and you will choose gratitude for what you have learned and experienced about yourself and life. You will be able to see the purpose of each and every relationship that you are having, and you will accept the lessons in reflection from those others by whose presence you are always invited to learn. You will also choose to be grateful to each and every one of those people for being your teachers, for choosing to participate with you on your learning path, so that you might evolve and, as the divine, learn about yourself through being with them. Promises and vows. Many of you experience connections to others so profound that you are inspired to make promises to those others. Some of you experience this as vows, as one life is ending for one of you to find the other in another life. The feeling of the moment is that you want to be with that person for the rest of your life, or perhaps all of your lives, and that you wish to express that the depth of your love will transcend time itself. Your love does, in fact, transcend time, of course. But as you live incarnated lives on earth, you have come to experience death as an end, even as you wish, and some of you believe, that there is more. Many of you are able to find each other again through the sheer strength of your creative powers of intention. Some of you do not find each other again, or you do, but not in the right way, or not along the timeline that you would like. Some in this situation are born longing for a particular other who might or might not be found in that lifetime. What I want you to understand is that this is a romantic notion out of which you are ready to evolve. Many of you making such vows or promises in any life believe that the person that you are with during that life is the one single being that was created by God for you to be with. You have perceived that the person completes you and that you cannot be whole without him or her. A number of Earth cultures have created and invested in a mythos surrounding romantic love that includes notions such as this one. I am here to tell you that there is not one single being out there for you, but that you have a number of karma mates. Those you are bound to at the soul level in order to support each other in fulfilling your life mission via contracts to have important and impactful relationships are those I call karma mates. The term soulmates would work just as well, but for the fact that most of you have come to misunderstand this term. Because of these notions of romance and that there is one person out there for you, and because you have not fully grasped what soul is and how it operates, the term soulmates is one I do not use. I choose to use karma mates so that you can let go of the idea that there is one soul out there for you and that there is something terribly wrong if you cannot be with that single individual for the rest of your life. These promises and vows that you make to each other are impediments to your growth and your process of learning to inhabit yourself fully as the divine being that you are. It is important that you choose to release yourself from the obligation to follow through on any such vows that you have made at any point in any of your lives, as well as release others from the vows that they might have made in a similar fashion that involve you. Your soul contracts guarantee that you will meet when the time is right and under the right conditions. Having vows in place, therefore, complicates your lives unnecessarily. What happens is that in addition to the soul contract in place, which will be fulfilled in one way or another at some point in time with no conscious promises from the humans involved, you also have an energetic cord reaching between your energy field and that of another. This affects you as in your energy field there is a knot with, so to speak, someone else's name on it. In a very deep way, you experience this as an energy loss. Losing energy when it comes to thinking of that person, spending time looking for or longing for that other person. Some of you even fracture yourselves in order to remain in your physical body while you send out parts of yourself looking for this other being. This would be seen through your human eyes, conditioned as they are by the cultural notions of romance you have inherited and by which you have been shaped as positive and a testament to the power of your love. I invite you to see how it is in fact a testament to your fear of being alone, having to live as being complete with yourself, and of abandonment by God or whatever name for deity you wish to use. If there is in fact one soul made for you by God, it is easy to think then its existence would be proof that God is looking out for you and wanting happiness for you. Even if God is not involved in your thought process about this, there is also an idea that there is a single other half of you in the form of another person. It is the same idea. It simply removes the idea of a single being that has created the two of you to be together and replaces it with the creator principle or the universe. This conception that there is a natural other half for you is not true. This reflects two realities. First, the inborn sense that you have that beings are not naturally male or female. The physiological reality that there are two different sexes serves you in many ways as you learn about how to live lives as humans, divine beings having human experiences. Yet it lends itself to this confusion that there is a natural other half. When you feel this, take it as a cue to remember that physically you are indeed male or female, but that energetically and emotionally you are whole and complete within yourself. This myth of separateness in which you have come to believe has led you to feel that you are what you physically are, and that as your body is disconnected from the other bodies, your soul is disconnected from other souls as well. The second reality this reflects is the depth of the love that you can feel for other humans. In the context of promises and vows, it makes complete sense to you that there would be a single soul out there for you. You can become so incredibly and deeply attached to another soul as it lives its own human lives that given your mindset on Earth, as far as this long-embedded romantic notion is concerned, it feels natural to assume that it's true. But it is not true. There is not one single being out there for you. There are lives in your history living along the Earth timeline as humans in which a single karma mate and you have agreed at the soul level to be mates for life. While in other lives you do not agree to this, but do agree to impacting each other for perhaps a brief time, but while you recognize the depth of the connection so that the relationship seems more important than one that otherwise should be so brief. At this time of immense change, as you undergo the acceleration of the evolution of consciousness, you are faced with dealing with intense feelings from a great number of your many lives along the Earth timeline. This is part of coming to experience yourselves as multidimensional beings, which your true nature as portions of all that is, experiencing yourselves through the lens of many of lives spread out along the Earth timeline. As a result, you may be dealing with your deep feelings of love for many people as you go about your life. It is a sort of piling up of realities, of real feelings from a variety of your lives. You may therefore meet many of these people in this particular life and not have relationships with many of them. And this can be confusing to the many parts of you that are activated energetically by meeting your karma mates, your dear loved ones, again in this way. Such promises in place, you will not feel completely free to evolve in any way that seems right for you at any given time. You will be carrying a promise or a vow with you to, in effect, be someone you are not. I say this because the part of you that has made this vow in another life is now just one part of you, and the vow that it made to the other person actually holds energetic sway over all parts of you now. Promises and vows carry energy, and they are, you could say, containers for your energy. When you vow or promise, you are committing your energy to flow in the direction of what you vow or promise to do. It is not simply that you say something. You are, in fact, creating with your words when you promise. And you are leaking energy when there are promises and vows in place. It is not romantic. It is draining you. If you have made vows and promises that are still in play, you will be, in some other life, drawn with an open heart and with good intentions to explore a relationship with a completely different karma mate, and yet part of you will feel off limits or unavailable to that karma mate. That part of you will be waiting for the arrival of the one to whom you made the vow in another life. One intention I have for you is to learn to live in the present tense as who you are today, and not who you were in another life. And so vows such as these must be released in order for you to progress along your path of evolution now. I assure you that those you are to meet again, you will meet again, and at the perfect times. You do not need, at the personality level, to vow to find each other again. Your souls have arranged all that you need to experience. So you could say that I'm inviting you to trust the wisdom of your soul, which is your wisdom as a divine being, to trust yourself as part of all that is. Promises and vows represent energy leaks, where you lose energy through a cord you have going out to another person or people. You have made a promise from what looks like love, but is actually fear. I urge you to accept the truth of these teachings about karma mates and how they come and go. I urge you to cease leaking energy waiting for a particular someone to come back to you, or in spending a great deal of your energy searching for that person or hoping that he or she will find you. The truth is that the harder you work to find someone, you might indeed find that person, but if the business that you have together is not ready to be pursued in this life, or at that particular juncture in space-time, you will most certainly not enjoy the experience. The more you can allow the soul agreements in place to come up for review and to be fulfilled in natural ways, the better off you will be in every way. If you find yourself unsure of how to let promises and vows go, or afraid of what would happen if you were to let them go, I invite you to refrain from judging this. I ask you to look at the fear or resistance that you have about doing this and understand that the presence of fear and resistance indicate that there is some work here for you to do. It is true that whatever you resist holds a key to the stage of your evolution in which you are currently. If what I have been speaking about is hard for you to take in, understand that it is now important for you to grieve whatever it is that you felt you have lost or did not have in the past. If you desire to hold on to the idea that one person will find you, or you will find that one person, you are not living in the present tense. In this case, you are unable to be fully present with yourself and who you really are, and there is, therefore, a need for you to do healing and processing work to learn to become willing to let such vows and promises go. Perhaps you will need to evaluate what it is that you perceive you lack at this time, and then learn to give it to yourself. Perhaps instead, you will need to see that there is a part of you that is unhappy and so longs for something to be different, and the romantic idea that there is someone out there for you somehow seems to make this part of you feel better. Perhaps it is something else entirely. Whatever you find, I invite you to work through this and become willing to let go of all notions of that sort of romance and choose to get present to who you are right now, in this moment, as the divine being that you are. Each sort of loss I will offer you perspective on here can represent a block to your evolution if you are holding on to the pain and the meaning from the past about why you experienced the pain. Each kind of situation can keep an individual from being in the present tense, which is the only way of living in which you can inhabit yourself as the divine beings that you are. If you carry this sort of deep, unprocessed pain from the past, you will create your future in terms of your painful past. You will create a painful future to show you your painful past. I encourage you to open to this information in the spirit of healing anything related to these kinds of painful experiences that you might still be carrying, both from this life and from your soul's other lives on Earth's timeline. For any of these to which you have had exposure in this life, or if one resonates with you as a possible situation you are dealing with in one or more of your soul's other human lives, I invite you to pause and consider as you read the meaning that you have attached to why these things happen. I would like for you to become conscious of the ingrained beliefs that you carry about why these sorts of deaths and losses occur. Your answers will reveal much about your approach to these situations in all of your human lives, and becoming aware of this layer of your consciousness will serve you well in transitioning into inhabiting yourself more fully as a divine being, creating the world around you. I intend, through this teaching, to put your attention on the reason a soul experiences different sorts of death and loss, which is to say why a soul creates a particular experience. I also wish that you understand the effect that this sort of loss has on the soul itself in its process of learning about how to live human lives on earth. It is my intention that taking this perspective will support you in deepening your awareness level about why things happen in your lives and how to better understand this journey over many lives that your soul has undertaken. This formation is meant to help you understand your own history and journey as set out by and designed with care by your soul, as well as the histories and journeys of the souls of your loved ones. These truths apply to each and every one of you, and I wish to support you in healing and releasing the fears about loss and death that you carry, as well as those that others in your life are carrying. It is also important that you understand these truths, for when you experience loss of loved ones in your life and you are left alive, wondering why the situation could possibly have unfolded the way it did.